not here, it does make me wonder if maybe Candy forgot to send the link. This is the fourth Wednesday of the month, and so this is a day we would normally offer some sort of value-based training or information to the Suffolk and Huntsville and Chesapeake locations. But since they don't appear to be here, we will continue, hopefully, with something that's useful to you guys. I see John's on, so maybe we can get some information out of John. But I don't know if you guys were on the tips from the top this morning, but I want to talk about that a little bit because it was absolutely incredible. And so if you weren't on it, I would encourage you to go back and watch the recording. They had 3 agents on there, 3 Long & Foster agents who all, as individual agents, do in excess of $20 million a year in sales volume. And so I thought that was really, really cool to get their perspective on business. And so I took some notes, and so I'm going to share some of that with you. And then I'm also going to introduce you to a tool that you may or may not be familiar with. But before we get too deep into my brain, let's see what's on Jonathan's brain. Can you hear me, John?
Hey, Jason. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. You sound great.
Let me turn off the AC.
So,
all right, yeah.
how's the market?
The market is great. I mean, obviously, it's still crazy busy. As far as rates go, still staying low. We really don't foresee any significant impact to rates regarding the election. I mean, I think COVID is going to create a really low rate environment so I don't think it's going to be something that's going to change on a given day. You never know. That could, obviously it's a slight wild card, but right now that's the forecast. One thing I want to kind of talk about today, I try to bring up something maybe a little different every time, but kind of just going through really quick. I know as seasoned agents, you guys know exactly kind of how I arrive at where someone qualifies. So I just want to run through that real quick, just to remind everybody kind of how I determine how much someone can qualify for. So the biggest determination is going to be the debt to income ratio, right? So there's obviously things that are important. One is the credit score. One is the assets that someone has available for a potential down payment, and the third one is their income, right? Now, depending on the scenario, obviously if they're a veteran, they don't really need that unless we need it for closing costs, because in this market we're not getting a lot of that. So that's one thing. So do they have the assets? If they only have a certain amount of assets, that can limit how much they can qualify for. But, the credit usually is just kind of more so like a key to a door for a given product. Or do you have a minimum credit score? Do you meet the credit requirements for the loan? But how I determine usually how someone qualifies or how much they qualify for is going to be the debt to income ratio. So that's a key. So I'll kind of go through a quick way for you to get an idea, just to be a little dangerous as far as to know about how much someone could qualify for. All right. So first thing we got is identify the qualifying income. Okay. So the qualifying income is going to be the gross monthly income for somebody. So if someone is a salaried employee, very easy. If they make, $120,000 a year, if that's their annual salary, okay, they don't get any bonus income, they don't get anything else. Well, then their monthly income is $10,000. Does that make sense? So, and again, it's just for easy math purposes. So let's just go down that path. So that's their salary, $120,000 per year, $10,000 per month. We'd like to have the debt to income ratio at around 45% of the monthly gross income. Okay, so what that means is all of the monthly payments that are shown on the credit report, plus anything that you might have like alimony or child support, or any garnishments or taxes that are due to the government that you pay on a regular basis, anything like that. we basically would subtract that from 40 to 45%. Whatever's left over is the payment in which you would qualify for. So let's go ahead and kind of go through that path again. So if someone has $120,000 per year, $10,000 per month, 45% of that number is going to be $4,500, right? So let's say they have student loans, car payment, credit card, minimum payments on their credit card, kind of go down the list. You would take those payments and you would subtract them from that number. Whatever's left over would be the payment for the mortgage they would qualify for. Now, what gets a little gray is, let's say they have student loans and a deferment, so they don't technically have a payment. Well, depending on the type of loan, we have to count some sort of payment against them. So conservatively, you count 1% of the loan balance against the borrower. So if they owe $10,000 for a student loan, you say, okay, well, here's you just knock the last two zeros off, and you say, here's $100. We're gonna count that as your payment. So once you do that, so if you know what someone's liabilities are, you can actually do a pre-qualification, right? Which is basically a pre-approval without pulling the credit. Because if I say, hey, I know my credit score is a 680, okay, I know this is my income, okay, then I know these are my liabilities. You can really pretty much find how much they can qualify for payment. So then the trick is, okay, what sales price does that payment equate to? And that's going to be determined on the type of loan. So meaning is conventional VA or FHA or VHDA, and how much are they putting down? So if they're putting down money for a down payment, obviously we have to look at that and see kind of if they're putting down 20%, where are we going to land on the payment perspective to get us to that 45% mark? Now, generally, just to put this out there, I usually don't press people up to their max ratios all the time, right? I always ask them where they want to be from a budget perspective, and then I try to put a little wiggle room in there. What I don't want is to kind of send you, hey, here's the maximum. Sometimes they want to know, and then you find something that's a little bit more, and then we can't do it. Now, a lot of the programs like FHA and VA, you can go above that 45. You can probably even go up to 55 for FHA and VA with good credit. But conventional, 45 is a good number. And 45 is a good number for all of them, by the way. The HGA, you can't go a penny over 45. But in a nutshell, that's kind of how I arrive. Now, there's so many moving parts. So if someone says, I make this much money, but they are commission, or they get bonus income, or they're happily real estate agents, so their income fluctuates, they're self-employed. Every single type of income is going to be calculated differently. It's my job to ask the right questions to determine how the underwriter is going to arrive at the qualifying income to see how much they qualify for. And it really gets down into the nitty-gritty. That's why I prefer to do applications over the phone opposed to online applications, only because if a borrower says, well, this last month I made this much money, and then they put that in their application, but in actuality, that's not how much they make normally. Borrower doesn't know. They're just kind of putting it in there. They don't know how important it is to be, how we end up calculating income. It can end up impacting things significantly. So I ask a bunch of little questions that I feel people out on how they're paid, how long they've been making the income they've been making. Okay, let's say I'll say, okay, yeah, you work overtime. I always ask how many hours a week on average, and they'll say, oh, I work 50 hours. Okay, well, how long have you been working 50 hours? Oh, only for the last 6 months. So to me, if you don't have a 2-year history of overtime, we can't use it at all. So there's little things like that you can get tripped up on. So I'm kind of getting into the weeds here, but my point is, if you're ever curious to know how I arrive, the amount someone gets pre-approved for, that's how I do it. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that process at all? Okay. And like I said, it's not be all there, but there can be a lot of other little things that we can try to manipulate. Sometimes for conventional loans or FHA or VA, we can actually pay off liability sometimes to help qualify. So if someone has, a conventional loan, if they have a credit card balance of $1,000 and they have a $100 payment, we didn't have enough money to pay off that balance. We can basically have them do that at closing, and we want to count the payment against them. Or if they have an installment loan and there's less than 10 payments left, potentially we don't have to count it against them. So there's a lot of little things that, like little rules that we always, from a loan officer's perspective, little levers we could try to pull to get someone to qualify for a little more if we need to.
I have a question.
So, as a, just to clarify, just so it's clear in my own mind, using that example of $10,000 a month in gross income, and we subtract 45%, and that's $4,500 in this example. That leaves then $5,500. Are you saying that that $5,500 is what he might qualify for a mortgage payment up to $5,500? Or are you saying that $5,500 is the most he can be spending in other places, be it student loans, child support, credit cards, car payments?
Good question. So I'll try to, so that it's actually, it's not 55. So it could be up to 55 if it's FHA or VA, but if we go with that 45% number, so the 45% debt to income ratio is all inclusive of the anticipated monthly mortgage payment and their debt. So it's not 55. So don't even think about the 55. It's just the 45. That's the number that everything has to fit into.
Okay, so the 5,500 is then just supposed to be disposable, extra.
Yeah, that's right. So that, they found that using these numbers that you build in things for, obviously, because think about things that we don't count against you. We don't count your groceries. We don't count when you eat out. We don't count utilities. We don't count, except for VA, we don't count childcare expenses. So there's a lot of things in your life that you need money for. So if you think about really the fact that we, again, for VA instances, can qualify someone at 55% of their gross, mind you, not how much they earn and get paid, their gross monthly income, 55%, pretty crazy. So that's a huge portion of their income just for one, for all their liabilities. So it's kind of pushing it. But yeah, to answer your question, Jason, is the 45% is the number, sub 55. But again, for some loans, we can go up above 45 in certain instances, especially for people who credit and for FHA and VA loans. For conventional, if you put down more than usually 10%, you can trickle up to 50 with good credit. But below that, they're usually kind of a hard stop. They put in extra strict guidelines for COVID that you can't go over 45 in conventional. But again, if you go down 10% or more, I'm seeing the approvals up to 49.9. You cannot go over 50 with conventional, not a penny. It will not approve your loan. And Sharon, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do. A couple. When you were talking about student loans, you said you take 10% of the outstanding balance. So
1%.
Yeah, I'm sorry, 1%. So if say a nurse and she's been going to school for 4 years and now she's got tons and tons of student loans, that payment could conceivably stop her from qualifying for anything, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I can't tell you how many people I talk to that have student loans have everything else going for them, but it just screws them up because they have $100,000 in student loans, right? But here's the thing, this is what's important. Every single type of loan has different calculations for the minimum payment. So FHA is the most strict. So right. FHA, you pretty much have to use the higher of what's on the credit report or 1%, unless the payment on the credit report is fully amortizing, meaning it's not income based, it's not going to change, it's just like, it's a fixed payment. If that's the case, you can use less than 1%. So that's for FHA. Now let's go for conventional. Let's say someone's going conventional and they're a nurse or a teacher, and they're in an income-based repayment, right? And their payment is $0 because their income is low enough that it doesn't require a payment. Now for conventional, we can use that payment, that $0 payment, if that's what their repayment type is, income-based, and that's what shows. We confirm that. So conventional is much less strict when it comes to that. So if someone's in an income-based repayment or graduated payment plan, we can use that, or even $0, as long as it's not in deferment. So that's important. So, yeah, this whole CARES Act thing is really nice for the people not to have to pay their student loans. But what it did is it took people that were in income-based repayment at a lower amount. Let's say they were paying $12 on a $50,000 loan, right, for conventional. All of a
Right.
sudden, they're in deferment, right, for the CARES Act, administrative deferment, and now I have to use $500. As opposed to conventional, as opposed to the month before, I only had to use what's the payment on the credit report they're making. So it actually could end up hurting some people depending on the situation. Now, VA, if there's no payment showing, you can use the payment for VA, whatever showing. If there's no payment, you take 5% of the balance, you divide by 12. And for VA, still the only loan type where if it's going to be deferred for more than a year from closing, you actually don't have to include the payment. If it's deferred. All the other types of loans used to be like that. It was more than a year out, you have to come payment, but they all changed. So VA is pretty lax too. So in a lot of instances, yes, you're right. The student loan payment can be detrimental.
Okay, and on just basic credit cards, charge cards, you take, it's the lower of the payment. I mean, it's the minimum required payment?
That's all it is. Yeah, they don't get into like any other. If it shows 0 on the credit report for some reason, like right now, some companies are giving some flexibility. They're not requiring a payment.
You still have $10?
Yeah, so usually there's some sort of minimum payment showing, like being reported on the credit report. So that's what we use. We just use the minimum payment.
Okay.
And now if someone is in a lease, right, so they're leasing a car and they only have 2 months left, it doesn't matter. Because at the end of the lease, they're either going to have to renew the lease and get another payment, or they're going to have to buy the car and get a payment. Now, if they have another car and they're just going to get rid of the lease, we can document that. It's potential we don't have to count the lease. But if you have a standard car loan and you have a couple payments left, you might not have to count that against you.
Right, okay.
Little things, yeah.
Yeah, and a couple of other real quick questions. On the Uplift program that you use to balance out the lower FICO scores, what criteria does that person have to have before you will give them that option? I mean, what if they have a 620 and it looks really good, but you somehow or other would do something to give them the rate of a 640 or the rate of a 680? Is that what that program is? And what determines that? Length of job, money in the bank, what?
So go backwards. Let's talk about what Sharon's referring to is the program that Prosperity rolled out. It's the Uplift, which is for FHA and VA buyers with kind of lower credit scores. And what it does is it's a pilot program. It's not in all of our markets, but it's in ours. And it basically, Prosperity is absorbing the negative loan level pricing adjusters that you typically would see on these loans. And it would effectively, you would go from having to charge maybe 4% on someone with a 620 to basically 2.625. So you imagine how much that impacted people. So it's huge. It's awesome. Now, a couple things to mention on this. There's income limits for the Uplift. So I have to, and it's based on the whole household. And it's basically 100% of the area median income. So I look to see where they're looking to buy and see if they kind of meet that criteria. And so that's the first thing I look at. Okay. The other thing is going to be they don't allow over 50%. Generally, it depends on your credit score. If you are over a 640, they don't really like you going over 50%. Now, here's the thing. If you have a DU approved in our system, everything is negotiable to a degree, right? So I could go back and say, hey, look, like we're at 50.01, like, yeah, don't be ridiculous. This is a decision Prosperity has made to kind of absorb these adjusters to try to benefit people. So it's somewhat arbitrary as far as our guidelines that we set for the program, but they could be sticklers theoretically if they did like the loan and said, hey, you need to meet the certain criteria. But a couple other things. They're requiring anybody that's in the Uplift to take a first-time homebuyer class. So I've been having them take the VHDA free one online, and they're requiring them to do a budget. Okay, so yeah, and it's all good things to do, but to me, it's like oh, you're trying to help these people out, that now you're making them do a bunch of other extra stuff. Like, I don't know. To me, it's like, and for someone who's like in the 640 to 660 range, when we're just doing it to get a better rate, I think it's kind of like rubbing salt in their eye, like, hey, do this extra thing, jump over this extra hurdle. when the process is already pretty difficult as it is. But that's just kind of my personal opinion. Obviously, to get a much better rate or much better pricing, it's worth it to do, right? But school programs, so even the underwriters are still kind of now just processing their first ones of these. So they are learning at the same time that I am. They'll call me and say, hey, I have a question. Like the underwriter will call me like, hey, what's up with this program? I'll have to tell them kind of how it works. So long story short, it's awesome. It's a great program, but it's not good for everybody. See, a lot of people make too much money for it. Not good with the standard program, which again, I don't know why they're doing it that way and why they're setting the income at that price point, but or that's their decision.
Okay, all right. And that's not something that we have to ask for, or they have to ask for or know about. If they qualify for that program, then you just put them in that program, or you just make a suggestion and say, hey, your client would qualify for this, but this is what they have to do. Are they interested? Something like that.
Yeah, so I'm generally, if I know they're going to qualify, they will never know.
Okay, right.
I'll have the conversation with them about like the extra things they'll have to do, like the home buyer education, stuff like that. But if I'm like, for example, competing, you know, I'm just going to basically give them the best pricing, which I would anyways, right? So if they follow this criteria, I know I'm going to look to see if I can go down this option and go with the uplift.
Okay.
If it's borderline, I might just go with more conservative, and then after the fact, once we confirm the income, we can always toggle back to the other option. But the last thing I want to do is kind of promise them to do, because there's a big difference in pricing. So if I promise the uplift, or I quote them on the uplift, right, and all of a sudden they're $5 over on the income, and then we don't give an exception, you're talking about an impact in pricing at a pretty significant level. So something borderline,
Right.
I will probably err on the being a little more conservative.
Okay, one last question, just this very general. So I've been hearing, and of course we all get the statistics from, Keeping Current Matters and things like that, the predictions for the interest rate. So I've been hearing a lot about how the interest rate may stay this low through 2023. That seems really far-fetched to me, but do you concur with that?
I think anybody who is forecasting out to 2023 is being belligerent. I don't think there's any way anybody could forecast that. Now, it's just impossible to know. I mean, it really is. Now, with that said, so obviously forecasts are much more accurate, the more kind of closer it is to the current. So right now, what they're saying is basically through 2021, they're forecasting rates to be really low. Beyond that, any speculation of where rates are going to go. And again, I want to be clear that maybe they can do longer term estimation of like, okay, it's not going to go over 4. But if people right now are getting used to 2.25, and that's the hard part. People look at 2.25 and then all of a sudden they get offered 2.875. They're like, what the heck? What's this high rate? It's like,
Right.
It's like, are you crazy? Because rates low. But if people get lulled into this being the new normal of having a 2.25 rate on a VA loan, takes up even a little bit, people get very sensitive to the increase in rates. But they have to keep rates low. There's been too much negative impact to the economy through COVID. Even if we had a vaccine tomorrow and they started rolling it out, it doesn't matter. Rates they're gonna have to keep rates low for a while just to basically keep the economy running and humming and keep the housing market on fire like it is.
Okay.
So I don't know if that answers your questions. And sorry to take up so much time, Jason.
No, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Sorry, Jay.
It's good. It's good. I think that was great information. I'm anytime we can offer clarification about, what it takes to get our clients qualified, I think is helpful because, we can use that information not as, specifically. Obviously, we're not going to suggest that you either are or you are not qualified, but it will, to have that information, I think gives us a good sense of what the guidelines are. And so we can present that information and have that information available for our clients as a, maybe a general rule of thumb, but I'm not the mortgage expert. Obviously, you need to go talk to John for your specific situation. So I think that's really, really good information. So I'm glad that you brought that up, John, and I'm glad that we now have something we didn't have 25 minutes ago. So thank you. Anybody else have any questions for John before we change subjects? Nope. All right. Good deal. Good deal. So thank you, John.
No problem.
So we had the tips from the top webinar this morning. It was at 10 o'clock from 10 to 11. And of course, Lee McGinnis and Coach Fino were hosting. But it was a really good one. And they've all been really good. But this one was unique in that it was 3 different agents from different parts of the country. And each of these 3 agents do in excess of $20 million a year in sales volume consistently as solo agents. And so, you know, there's not a lot of those agents in the country. They are among a very, very elite few. And so it's kind of cool that, you know, they choose to be with Long & Foster for one thing. And it's also kind of cool that they're so willing to share. And willing to give back to you know, the Long & Foster family. So so if you weren't on the webinar this morning, I would encourage you, you know, to watch it when the recording comes out. But I did take a few notes, and I just wanted to share that with you, and maybe we could talk a little bit about it, and you know, how some of these things either may or may not apply to you and your business. And so Sue. One of the ladies was Sue. There was Sue, Stacy, and Justin, I believe. Yeah. And so Sue said that when she came into the business, you know, she did basically duty time or phone duty and open houses, and that was the foundation of her business. And while, you know, here she is years later, and 100% of her business is referral based. You know, she developed her business through open houses and phone duty because they had moved to a new area. She didn't know a lot of people. And so what she found, though, is that through creating those relationships and maintaining those relationships, it has turned into a $20 million plus business for her all these years later. And so I thought it was really cool. And one of the things she mentioned that she does is, you know, anytime she has a client with a pet, she will send them a bark box. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but it's a website, barkbox.com, and you can send a care package for your client's pets. And she said it's $30 to $40. She does it one time, but it really cements her position in that family's life. With giving so much concern to their pets. And so she uses social media as a way of you know, keeping in touch and following her past clients, which is something that we've talked about before. But anytime she'll see somebody in her sphere get a pet or adopt a pet, she loves BarkBox. And I thought that was very, very cool. There's also one for cats and kittens as well. I didn't write that website down because I don't really like cats, but you can watch the replay and get that website for the cats. So very cool stuff right there. Open houses and phone duty has evolved into a $20 million a year business for Sue. Justin said something really interesting, and the subject of transaction coordinators came up because, you know, there's a lot of behind the scenes, as Stacia can attest, admin related tasks involved in processing a transaction, be it a buyer or a seller. And so a lot of agents have turned to transaction coordinators or closing coordinators in order to take some of those behind the scenes duties and responsibilities off of the agent. And Justin said that he would absolutely never do that. He thinks that it's a big mistake and it will cost that agent money in the long run. And I had never heard someone say that really before. But he believes that when you do that, you're giving away your client's impression or whether it be a good impression or a bad impression, you're passing that off to a third party, another person. Because what transaction coordinator means to most agents, I think, is that once they've negotiated the deal and written the contract, they hand the file off to the transaction coordinator, who then manages the transaction through closing. And maybe the agent shows up at the closing table with a gift. And while that sounds really, really cool in theory, he believes it's a big mistake, because there are so many details that have to be navigated through the course of the transaction, that if you pass off that communication, you're passing off your relationship. You know, you want your clients to feel like you were in this with them. And every opportunity to communicate is an opportunity to deepen and strengthen your relationship, and continue, build that referral and that relationship network that you have, that sphere of influence. And so I had never heard anybody say that. And so I thought, it was really an interesting point that he makes, because I have, thought historically, how nice it would be if there were this other person to take over that transaction responsibility. But in a sense, they also take over the relationship. And that is, as we all know, the most valuable thing that we have is the relationship with our past clients and sphere of influence. So that was a really, really good point, I thought. And so I'm not still sure how I feel about it. I just wanted to share that with you, because, let's face it, there are a lot of other things that you could be doing. That is not a necessarily an income producing activity, managing the transaction. We make money when we show houses and negotiate offers and list houses. Those are key income producing activities. So I think it was Stacy who said, be authentic. This is what she has found in her business. Be authentic, be yourself, adapt to your client's needs. And I think we can probably all come up with a great example of that. She was using the example, or sharing the example of a really, really tight buyer client that she had. And they almost weren't able to close, and it was because it was so tight financially, they almost couldn't get the loan. And then they did close. And, one of the things that was important to the buyer client was a washer and dryer. And unfortunately, they weren't able to negotiate that in the transaction. And so the agent then put out a call to her sphere of influence and found one of her past clients who had a washer and dryer that they were no longer using, and they were just going to donate someplace. And so she ended up donating it to this new set of clients, and how meaningful that was to those clients, and how they will never, ever, ever forget what she did for them, and how she made them feel by making the arrangements and putting this together, by going the extra mile. You know what I mean? So she has literally cemented her place in their lives, probably forever. And I think that's really, it's more than just a real estate transaction. It's a relationship. And I think that she proved that to them in that moment when that washer and dryer showed up at their house. And so I thought that was a great testimonial. And I think that that's what we all need to keep in mind, is it's about the relationship and not the transaction. And I think if you're only in it for the money, then that's a short-sighted view. I think if you're in it for the people and the reviews and the testimonials and the relationships, I think the business will come to you naturally, because that kind of word has a tendency to spread. So, and then one more, Justin said that, which I thought was really interesting, and I talked to Dudley about this morning, actually, because he's getting a lot of renter leads right now. And but Justin said that he's been in the business for 10 years now, so since 2010. So not very long, really. And he said he started with renters, and he still works with renters. because he said they are the people who are most in need because nobody else wants to work with them. And he says, and when you help them find something and get a rental, they will love you forever. And he says, what's great about those people is you know exactly when their lease ends. So you start calling them a couple of 2 or 3 months before their lease ends and say, hey, you know, I know your lease is coming up. Have you given any thought to maybe being able to buy? And if you can nurture a relationship with the renters, they're the most grateful people. Because a lot of times people rent because they don't have the option of buying, but they will one day. And certainly they can introduce you to people who are buying or selling property. And so again, every one of these people touched on relationship as being the key driver to their business. None of these people are, you know, buying leads. They're not real big into technology, but they are big into maintaining and nurturing relationships, be it through social media and or networking events. And so obviously everything changes with the onset of COVID, and we don't know exactly how long that's going to last. And, you know, depending on, you know, how long that lasts, it's going to have an impact on, you know, what we can and can't do as a community and for getting together. Enjoy what you do, right? Enjoy what you do and delegate what you don't. So that was another Justin point. You know, he was really, really big about that. You know, there are some things that he just does not enjoy, and he either doesn't do it or he delegates it. And he was talking about technology at the time. You know, that's just something that, you know, he tried to learn and to figure out and just became frustrated. And so he found those key elements that he wanted to pursue, and he found somebody else to do it for him. You know, there are a lot of other things that you can be doing to create an income for yourself. So I mean, if you think about how many activities generate business, it's almost unlimited, right? Everything you do could create an income opportunity. And so do the things you enjoy. And what is that saying? You know, if you enjoy what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. Something like that. So those were my notes and my takeaways from this morning's webinar. I hope that you guys will take a few minutes to watch that for yourselves, because as we know, we all take away something a little bit different. And so it was a really, really good interview with 3 superstar top producing agents in Long & Foster. And so I would encourage you to check out Tips from the Top when the recording comes out on Friday. And I'll obviously include that in the TGIF. Anybody have any thoughts about that? Anybody want to say anything or talk or share?
Jason, I have a similar story, like with the washer and the dryer, that I could relay in that, and actually it goes even a little deeper, because I had a buyer. They were super excited. A woman, her mother and father, and 2 kids all buying a house together. And so it took the 2 incomes, her income and the father's income, to get them to qualify. And of course, lo and behold, right in the middle of it, she got laid off, and they were absolutely devastated. So I reached out to people that I knew and helped her get employed again. And along with that, so she got employed as a cashier, and then moved directly from cashier they just loved her. And within a month or 2, she was into, you know, like the management part of that firm. And along with that, they also needed a washer and dryer. And I had been thinking about buying a new washer and dryer. So I gave them mine and I bought a new one. And I think, I mean, I've gotten referrals. I think, again, that's a good example of how they never forget you. It is building relationships. It definitely, you know, runs right along with that. And I think if you do the right thing, then it multiplies. You not only saved the transaction,
you created a lasting impression in these people's lives that will probably pay off for years and years. And
Right.
Marvella wants a car, so keep that in mind, Mom. Next time you're trying to save a deal.
I'm sorry, Marvella. My car is already promised to my other granddaughter. She's only 14 and she spoke for it about 6 months ago.
That's okay. That's okay.
So
Hey, I'm just putting it up to the atmosphere.
that's
right.
what you got to. That's what you got to do too. It'll come back to you. So, and I totally agree with Justin about transaction coordinators. I think that the whole process of the transaction coordinator, that's how you build the trust with that client. You know, if there's a problem, you call them and you discuss that problem. I think it's more than just pushing the paper part of it. So I did try transaction coordinator one time, and I found that I was too much of a control freak, I guess. I couldn't do it. It's like, nope, I have to be involved. I want to start it. I want to finish it. I want to be in the middle of all of it. So
I think, you know, and this was a new concept to Coach Fino as well. He had never heard someone spin that concept around the way Justin did. And so obviously there are many, many, many successful agents who rely heavily on their transaction coordinators. And so there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. And so,
yeah.
you know, Coach made the point that, you know, if you are going to take advantage of the services of a transaction coordinator, you know, don't give away your relationship. You know, don't just hand them the file and expect to be there at the closing table. You know, you've got to maintain the relationship because it's the most valuable part that you have. It means more than, you know, the $6,000, the $7,000, the $10,000 commission. The relationship is the key because everybody knows 4 or 5 people moving every single year. And so what could that relationship, that single relationship, turn into over a lifetime? And so I think that's the key, you know. So whether you use a transaction coordinator or not, don't give away your relationship.
Yep.
Yeah, very cool. All right, let me share something with you guys real quick and we'll let you go. Let's see. All right, wrong slide. So this is, I don't know, I have been on this tab for days and days, but you guys should be familiar with ListHub. I know that this is something that we've talked about in the past. You guys should, I hope you're taking advantage of ListHub for the purposes of, you know, sharing your marketing activities with your clients. This is really, really cool information to share with your client. It tracks all of the, well, I don't want to say all, but it tracks a lot of the online activity that our listings receive. You can set this up to go directly to your clients automatically. Personally, I set mine to go up every Wednesday, you know, automatically to my listing clients, my sellers. And it lets them know, you know, how many views they had this week. And where was the traffic coming from? Was it Zillow or Long & Foster or Realtor.com? Where did most of their activity come from? And so this is not what I planned to show you, but I thought since I was on the tab, I would just show you. So ListHub, if you're not familiar with it, you should get familiar with it. It's pretty cool. So this is what I wanted to show you. So everybody should know too about the Market Insight Market Minute Reports. And so we have these Market Minute Reports, Market Condition Report, and then a Luxury Report. And they're all available for you. Now the path to get there has changed slightly since, you know, we had the ransomware attack and the outage, but they are all back up and they're all working again. And so if you're not using these, I think there are so many ways that you could be using these. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. Because I think, let me see if I can find one open. So I don't have one open. So you can go to statistics. You can go to Hampton Roads Market Conditions Report. All right. So here is the 9-page Market Conditions Report. They update this every single month. And you talk about professional content. This is the kind of content that really makes you stand out, really makes you look like an expert to your friends, family, sphere of influence. And while we can get this information from a lot of other sources, this is the only source we're going to have this information custom branded to Long and Foster. And so what I think would be a really, really good opportunity here would be to do a screen capture, much like I do the TGIF, do a screen capture and review this information in about 30 seconds as a screen record, and then put this out to your sphere of influence, either by email or social media, or you can text video now, which is absolutely incredible. And so I just want to remind you guys that this information is here. It is available. It's updated every single month. This is the 9-page market conditions report. They also have one that is, so let's see, statistics. Let's go to Hampton Roads. Market leader, no, market minute. I'll go to market minute, yeah. So this is all broken down. This is what's changed since the outage. And so they've changed the way that we access these reports. But they're all still here, and you do still have access to them. And so here's Virginia. And let's see, I'm gonna go down here, just maybe, we'll see if I can find Suffolk real quick. And A, B, C, D, E, F, there we go, okay. So, so Suffolk, you've got a couple of options, right? So this is the September 2020 Suffolk Market Minute Report brought to us by Long and Foster. So this is a 2-page PDF right here. You can also get this in HTML, which is kind of cool because then all of these graphs are interactive. You can share this on social media, obviously, but I think what's even more powerful would be to, like I said, do a 30, 45 second, a 60-second recording of you presenting this information to the public every single month, and talk about the fact that inventory is at an all-time low and the median sale price is going up, and the correlation between the two, as the supply and demand, as the inventory goes down, demand goes up, the prices are going up, days on market is shrinking. There's so many ways that you can present this information, and whether you present just the top section or maybe the bottom section of this report, it's great content that makes you stand out amongst the million other agents who are not doing this. So there's where's the yeah, so let's see, if I go to Suffolk and I click on the HTML, this is kind of cool. So here's the HTML version, and you can see here on the screen how it's interactive, which is kind of nice because you can email this to someone as an interactive link, right? And so then they can come here. And it just looks like really strong content about their area, wherever they are, be it Suffolk or Virginia Beach or Chesapeake or Newport News, wherever you happen to be. So it's all, like I said, interactive, great information. I would encourage you to put this on your website or access to this on your website if you haven't already. You can share these reports at a million different places. So however you choose to spread the word, you can see here they've got options and options and options and options, and even for email. So good stuff. Are you guys, anybody familiar with this? I mean, everybody should know about it, except for maybe our newer people. But I want to make sure that that you have access to this, and it updates automatically every single month, and you don't have to do anything. So if you send somebody a link, it automatically updates every single month. So it's live. If you put this on your website, it changes automatically every single month. So very cool.
I didn't know that. So Jason, when you were helping me last night, and I did post it, by the way, and
Yeah.
and you were showing me the snippet, and now you just used the word screen capture. Is that the same thing?
So yeah, so I'm a big fan of the snipping tool. So you guys probably will recognize this. And so, for example, this is, everybody should probably have this on their computer if it's a Windows-based computer. And snipping tool is what it's called. And so it's pretty easy, and that it blurs out the entire background. You take your crosshairs and you just highlight what part of the screen that you want to save, and it saves it for you. So I would call that, you know, a screen capture or a snip.
Okay.
But you can also do like a print screen and capture everything, which is going to include the tabs up at the very top of your screen, which most people don't want to see.
Okay, well, everybody knows I'm challenged in that area, so it took me an hour just to do it. So I think that's one of those that I need to delegate.
Very cool. Anybody got any questions, thoughts? Was that, well, I thought it was interesting.
Jason said that List Hub isn't working. Is it not working for all agents?
Oh, that's interesting. Let's see. It should be working. I'm on it right now.
Yeah, I contacted the customer care, like you said, and they kept on sending me your link to your List Hub, and then it would take me like into your profile. It was weird. But yeah, if I try to go and do it, it says that it's not available or coming soon. So I just emailed them again.
Okay. Yeah. Well, keep on that and let me know how that works out, because if it works for me, it should work for everybody. I don't understand why there would be a discrepancy there. You know, what else is cool about that is it shows you all of the List Hub relationships. And so all of the different websites that our listings go to because of our List Hub relationship. So it's pretty cool. You know,
Try,
websites you never even heard of.
Jason, try going to, not you, Jason, the other Jason. Try going to Long and Foster's help desk. Email them and see if they can help you.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, with that said, I will let you go. I appreciate you being here. Not sure what happened to our Southside gang today, but it is recorded, and we'll pass it along as we always do. So thank you all very, very much. So enjoy your day.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.